Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today we're going to talk for a bit about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Last season was one of their best in a really long time without LeBron James on the roster. They were fantastic. They finished with a 51-31 record, good for 4th in the Eastern Conference, making themselves known as one of the biggest threats out there, both now and in the future. And the big reason why they were so good was the addition of Donovan Mitchell in the offseason. When the trade happened, I loved it. It made a ton of sense, because not only were the Cavs looking to add another star player to really push them to the next level, but Mitchell fit in perfectly as the 2 guard next to Darius Garland, forming one of the best backcourts in the entire league, and adding another young all-star caliber player to a team that already had a few. Garland had just been an all-star, Jared Allen had just been one, Evan Mobley was one of the top picks and projected, and still does project, as a future all-star as well. It made a lot of sense, and it worked out great in the first season of him being there in Cleveland. He had the best individual year of his entire career, scoring a career-high 28 points per game on really high efficiency en route to his first All-NBA appearance. He also, of course, along the way had some crazy clutch time performances. He scored 71 points in a game. It's safe to say that the first year of having Donovan Mitchell was a huge success. But, like I said, Donovan Mitchell didn't do it all himself. While he was the best player on the Cavs, there were a few other guys that were huge in their success. One of those I already mentioned in Darius Garland. He put up very similar numbers this past year to when he was an all-star, just with better efficiency and around 1 less assist per game. He was amazing. I think a lot of people, just because Donovan Mitchell took some of the spotlight, have forgotten how just so good Darius Garland is. He's an incredible playmaker, one of the most underrated in the entire league. Again, his efficiency is phenomenal. He had a 50-piece over the course of this season, and he can score with the best of them. He's so crafty with the ball in his hands. He sets teammates up perfectly. He's phenomenal. Him and Donovan Mitchell is such a great backcourt to have together. There are some defensive concerns, but at least offensively, there are very few backcourts in the entire league that can stack up even close to them. Alongside your 2 guards, you've got a couple of stars in the front court with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Evan Mobley in particular didn't take a big statistical jump. If you just took a look at his stats from his rookie to his sophomore season, you probably would have thought that he was disappointing. That's a narrative that was pushed a little bit throughout the year, particularly by Kendrick Perkins, but that couldn't have been less of the case. Mobley, again, the numbers didn't jump a ton. He put up 16.2 points per game, 9 boards, 2.8 assists, and 1.5 blocks on 55% shooting, which is roughly similar, a couple of jumps in some categories to what he did in his rookie season, but he was far more impactful, particularly on the defensive end. He was a great defender as a rookie. This past year, he was one of the best in the entire league. He anchored the league's best defense as a second-year player with a team that, again, has a relatively weak defensive backcourt. He was a monster, blocking shots, contesting shots, forcing opposing players to not even think about going towards the rim because Mobley was going to be there waiting. He's a force on that end, finishing top 3 in DPOY voting this past season, and I think Mobley has a number of Defensive Player of the Year seasons in him at some point in his career. He's incredible, and again, I've said multiple times on this channel, I think this is only the beginning. I am one of the highest on Evan Mobley people that you'll find on NBA YouTube. But he's also aided, of course, by Jared Allen, who had a great season of his own, dropping 14.3 points per game, 9.8 rebounds, 1.7 assists, with 1.2 blocks on 64% shooting. Allen was a phenomenal play finisher for the Cavs guards, a great pick and roll partner for either one of them, a big reason why they were able to also lock down defensively. Mobley was the anchor, but Jared Allen was right there as well, blocking shots, contesting things. When you've got 2 7-foot guys nearly, with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen down low, blocking shots, contesting with the skill and defensive IQ that they have, it's going to be really hard to ever get a great look in the paint. Not only were they the best defense in the league, but they also finished as a top 10 offense and seem poised for a potential dark horse run in the Eastern Conference. With their 51-31 record, they set themselves up for a first-round matchup against the New York Knicks, which it felt like they had the slight upper hand in, but that it was going to be a bloodbath regardless of who won. This is a series that when I predicted it, I thought it was going to go to 6 or 7 games, that we were going to see some incredibly close, really brutal, grinded out type of matchups, you know, the battle between Evan Mobley and Julius Randle, the guard pairing of Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland versus Jalen Brunson, who had come into New York and really overhauled things, the depth of the Knicks versus the shorter rotation of the Cavaliers. It was one that I thought was going to be incredible. And instead, the Cavaliers got completely destroyed. They lost in 5 games, 2 of those losses coming by double digits, and losing 3 straight after starting things off 1-1. The Knicks just really picked the Cavs apart. They destroyed them, particularly on the boards. Mitchell Robinson nearly out-rebounded Mobley and Allen combined. They played great defense on Donovan Mitchell and forced the Cavs supporting cast to really step up if Cleveland wanted to win. But That's probably the biggest weakness of last year's Cavs team. The supporting cast was not very good, and the stars also weren't that much better. Spiders struggled for like the first time in his career in the playoffs. Garland had a decent series, but inefficiency was a problem. Mobley and Allen, like I said, were not able to stop the Knicks' offense defensively enough, and also Mitchell Robinson just completely obliterated them both on the boards. And overall, they were just completely outmatched by a Knicks team that really seemed to have their number in this series. It was a brutal end for one of the most exciting Cavs seasons in the last 5 years, but it's one that I think they'll improve on drastically this season. I think there are a lot of positives to take away and a lot of reasons to be super optimistic for what Cleveland can do this upcoming season. It begins with the star-studded backcourt of Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. This is the true strength of this team. Like I said earlier, there are very few, if any, backcourts that stack up to them offensively. They're both machines, and they were able to last year make the Cavs a top 10 offense. I think they're going to do so again. I would be surprised if they weren't top 10 or on the fringe of that because of just how good those two guys are. They're incredible scorers, they're efficient, they play make at a high level, they've got play finishers next to them like Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, plus some new additions to the roster that we'll talk about in a bit that I think will also boost the offense overall. I expect big things from this backcourt. I think both of them are in this upcoming season for their best years yet. Donovan Mitchell, like I said, just had the best year of his career, and it was his first year in Cleveland with another year to build chemistry with the team, build that cohesion, and for him and Garland to figure out their roles better. I think Spidey is going to be even better. The numbers may not reflect it because we could see jumps from other players on this roster, but I think overall it'll be his best season to date. Plus, you've got Darius Garland, who's just 23 years old. He'll be 24 heading into this upcoming season. He's got so much room, in my opinion, to still grow as a playmaker, as a scorer, and I think having Donovan Mitchell alongside him, being able to take some pressure off, maybe a jump from Evan Mobley, plus the new additions, Garland's going to be in a better spot than ever to have an amazing season. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if Garland is again an all-star this season, and I think he's pretty clearly a player of that caliber, even if he doesn't make the team. This is a backcourt I like a lot. I think they're going to be one of the best for a long time as long as Donovan Mitchell is in Cleveland. I expect big things from them in their second year together as a duo, and I think people are sleeping on how much better they could be this upcoming season. But of course, it's not just them. Evan Mobley, in my opinion, is the true key to the Cavaliers reaching that next level. He's going into just his third season, was already a top 3 finisher in Defensive Player of the Year voting. He is amazing, and like I just said earlier, I'm incredibly high on Evan Mobley, and I think he's got a superstar level jump in him at some point. I don't know when that's going to come. It's probably not just from one season to the next. It's probably over time. But eventually, I think Mobley is going to be one of the best players, period, in this entire league. It's just a matter of time. And this upcoming year, I do believe he's going to take a step towards that, especially offensively. We know what we're getting defensively with Evan Mobley. Like I said, top 3 decoy finisher, anchor of the best defense in ball last year. Mobley's going to do great things on that end. Nobody is surprised. Really, they need that offense to come along a bit to make this team more cohesive on that end and to give them their true potential. Through his first couple seasons, Mobley has shown some flashes of being a really special player offensively someday. He's shown the ability to handle the ball at times in transition as a 7-footer. He can operate a bit on the perimeter, create looks for himself in the mid-range, operate out of the post. I believe eventually he'll be a threat from basically anywhere on the court to score. But right now, it is definitely a rawer game that he has, specifically on the perimeter. Last season, he shot just 21% from deep. That number needs to come up a lot if they're going to make this big man duo of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen work long term and make this offense a lot more fluid, which was a big problem against the Knicks. They weren't able to get consistent looks. They need Evan Mobley to be better from the outside, and I do believe he's going to be a lot better this season. I think the playmaking of Garland and Mitchell is going to boost him up a little bit, plus the overall improvement in spacing that they now have with their new additions will give Mobley some better looks, and I'm hoping he and the Cavaliers both know that he's got to improve. He's got to shoot more threes and knock them down efficiently, so I'm assuming that's something he's been working on. I'm buying into Evan Mobley. I not only expect the defense to once again be incredible, I fully expect another top 3 decoy finish, but I think the offense is going to come a long way. I don't know if he's going to become like a 20-point per game, all over the court scorer, but I think he's going to be a lot more effective, and it's going to be big for Cleveland. I'm buying into the Evan Mobley leap. I think he takes it, and it'll be big for the Cavaliers, potentially having a third all-star with him on the roster. I think this year he's got a shot to make the team. There's also Jared Allen, who to me doesn't have the potential for big improvements like some of the other guys that I've mentioned, but I do believe he's going to be great again. He was an all-star a couple of years ago, really solid rim protector, and him and Evan Mobley form probably the best defensive big man duo in the entire association. I would be surprised if they're not again towards the top of the defensive standings, and I think they'll probably finish as the #1 unit in the league again this year. So defense, cool, it's going to be elite, but how's the offense going to look? Like I said, they were top 10 last year with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, but they need more overall depth and spacing to really maximize the talent on this roster. They struggle to hit threes a lot last season, shooting one of the lowest marks from three-point range in the entire league, both percentage-wise and in terms of attempts per game, but I think that's going to change a little bit this season. They started off by retaining Karis LeVert, who's a highly variable scoring wing. There are some games where he'll score 30 points on incredible efficiency, and other nights where he'll put up like 4 points on 1 of 12 shooting or something crazy like that. He's very up and down. They need more consistency from him, but he is a guy that shot just under 40% from 3 this past season, so keeping him on the roster definitely does help that spacing, while also maintaining some of the limited depth that you had last season. They additionally, to improve on that depth, brought in 2 shooters, Max Strus and Georges Niang. Let's start off with Max Strus. Now, to bring him in, they had to do a sign and trade, giving up Cedi Osman, Lamar Stevens to the Spurs, a 3-team deal with them and the Heat to make the contract work. But in my opinion, it's worth it. Strus, I think, fits really well on this Cavs team. He had a pretty good season for the Heat last year, putting up 11.5 points per game, 3.2 boards, and 2.1 assists, while shooting 35% from 3. And that's a mark that you might think, oh, that's not phenomenal, but he's now going to be playing on a team again with playmakers like Garland and Mitchell, a team that really consistently gets their shooters wide open threes. Now, a problem they have is they don't knock down a lot of those threes, but they get them great looks. And so I think Strus is going to have a huge jump in his three-point percentage. Some people are a bit lower on Strus because he struggled when the Heat got to the finals, but he was big in them even getting there in the first place. He's a somewhat capable shot creator that I think plays really well off this starting lineup and could slot in pretty well at that starting 3 spot where they've been desperately looking for an answer. Isaac Okoro is supposed to be that guy. He projected ever since he got drafted as a 3-and-D wing, which is exactly what the Cavs need. They don't need someone who's consistently creating their own shot or anything crazy. They just need someone who can play some solid defense and knock down the open threes that Garland and Mitchell set up for them. Isaac Okoro has been unable to do either of those things consistently up to this point in his career, despite being a top 10 pick. I'm still hopeful that Okoro can someday become the archetypical 3-and-D player that the Cavs are looking for, but I'm not going to hold out hope that it's going to be this upcoming season or anything. I think it could be beneficial for Okoro to instead come off the bench, not be such a featured player, and looked at as to be the glue guy for the Cavs starting lineup. Maybe he works better as a bench piece that has a more limited role, which can allow him to focus more a bit on the defense and just knock down the 3-point looks that he occasionally gets. Their other big addition was Georges Niang, a sharpshooter out of Philadelphia, who has shot 40% or better from 3 every one of his last 5 seasons. He gives the Cavs the definition of a reliable perimeter threat that can either play the 4 or possibly a big ball 3 if they want to go that way. He's not very quick or a great defender, so it may be a bit shaky defensively, but if they're looking for a big offensive boost, I think him there at the 3 spot could work pretty well. And you've also got Allen and Mobley down low defensively, so maybe they can make it work. At the very least, I expect the Cavs to try this out, and if it works, it gives you a really interesting lineup that you can throw out there that provides you a bit more versatility than the Cavs have had in the past. Beyond those 2 bigger additions, they also made some smaller ones, like bringing in Ty Jerome, who last season for Golden State put up 7 points per game and 3 dimes while shooting nearly 40% from 3, giving them another perimeter threat, this time at the guard position. They brought in Damian Jones, who is a decent backup big for the Utah Jazz and Los Angeles Lakers at points last season, and drafted Emoni Bates, who fell to them in the 2nd round and looked really fun in Summer League. I don't know if he's actually going to get any run this season. I would be surprised, to be honest, if he ever established a role for this Cavs team, at least in this season, but maybe long-term Emoni Bates could find some of the potential that made him one of the top recruits and become a steal of the draft for the Cavs. For the 2nd year in a row, I really like what the Cavs did in the offseason. I think the additions of Strus and Niang will really help bolster that offense and give them the perimeter threats they really could have used against the Knicks and throughout the regular season as well. I think they maintained their really good defense with Mobley and Allen, both of whom I could see being even better defensively this upcoming year. And all in all, I just think they've positioned themselves to again be towards the top of the Eastern Conference. And if they get a jump from Evan Mobley, like I think they can, if Garland improves, becomes an all-star caliber player again, Mitchell maintains or even improves off what he did, maybe even Isaac Okoro or Jared Allen do something different. Like, this is a really young team. Internal improvement, I think, should be expected from them, and because of that and the additions that they made, I wouldn't be surprised if the Cavs find their way all the way to the top of the Eastern Conference this year, maybe finishing as a 1 or a 2 seed. I do want to note a couple of areas of concern that I have for the Cavs before we wrap this video up, because while I do think they're really, really good, if you couldn't tell from this video, they do have a couple of areas of concern. The first one is, while the depth, in my opinion, got better, it's still not phenomenal, particularly in the backup big spot and at the backup one. Typically at the backup point guard spot would be Ricky Rubio, but for the moment he's taken an indefinite leave away from the game of basketball to focus on bettering his mental health, which I think is incredibly important. You got to focus on your mental before you're able to focus on some other stuff, and it's a big step. It's really brave to go ahead and put that out there, so shout to Ricky Rubio, hope the best for him and that eventually he is able to come back to the game of hoops. But for the moment, they don't have him on the roster. They do have Ty Jerome, who I mentioned they picked up, and he does give them some depth there, but beyond him, it gets pretty thin quick. Then for the backup big, they do have Damian Jones, who I mentioned is an interesting option, but he's not a great one. Now, thankfully for the Cavs, they've got Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. Allen, of course, is going to play most of the center minutes, and Mobley will also pick up some of those when Allen's off the court, so I don't think they're going to need to rely on Damian Jones too much, but it is something to keep an eye on. My other concern is something that I think is a little more pressing and interesting than the minor depth concerns that the Cavs do have, and that's the clunkiness of the big man duo offensively. Defensively, like I said, very few, if any, front courts stack up to these two guys. But on the offensive end, it's not the best fit. Neither one of them at the moment are really a stretch big. Allen really never steps out to the perimeter, and Mobley can, and he does at times, but like I said earlier, he doesn't shoot a great percentage from deep. Like I said, I think he can eventually reach that point, and maybe this season he takes that leap, and this really isn't a long-term concern. But if he doesn't take that jump sooner than later, or really never does, the Cavs are going to probably have to start thinking about maybe moving on from Jared Allen, because there's no way they trade Evan Mobley. And there's rumors that they tried it, or at least explored what his value would look like on the open market this past offseason. They thought about trading him. So that's something that's on the radar. So just keep an eye out for that. If, again, it looks clunky, they're clogging up the paint for Garland, for Mitchell, which is something I think the overall spacing improvements can help out a lot with Strus and Niang. But if things don't look a lot better, maybe Jared Allen gets moved by the deadline. That's definitely something I'm keeping an eye on personally. But yeah, all in all, I think the Cavs are going to be really good again. Not enough people are talking about them as maybe a legitimate threat in the Eastern Conference. I love the star power that they have. I think Mitchell and Garland are one of the best backcourts in the league. Said a million times on this channel, super high on Evan Mobley. I like the offseason moves that they made. I think the Cavs are going to be really good, better than they were last season, and one of the top teams in the conference. Let me know what you think about the Cavs for this upcoming year. What record do you think they finish with? Where do they finish in the standings? Do you think Mobley and Allen can work long-term as a big man duo? What do you think about the backcourt? Everything in between. How'd their offseason go? That's the big thing I would like to know from y'all. Do you agree with me that it was a big success? And yeah, appreciate y'all watching as always. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. And let me know any other teams you want to see me break down over the course of this offseason. We still have like a month and a half plus to go till the year. So gonna do some more team breakdowns, player breakdowns, anybody that you want to see me cover. Make sure to let me know down below. Appreciate y'all watching as always. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say back.